Hi, I think EO to start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular board meeting for Wednesday, October 28th, 2020. And before we begin, I'd like to recognize this meeting is taking place throughout Coast Salish territory. And with that, we will get underway. The first item on our agenda this afternoon is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes, Ms. Legault?
I believe Director Acton wanted to pull her director's report. Can I just confirm that with her?
Director Acton?
Sorry, getting to my unmute. Yes, thank you for catching that. I'd like to pull my director's report, please.
Okay, any other changes or additions to the agenda?
Not from staff.
Thank you. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Director Marsh, seconded by Director Acton. All those in favor? And none opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item M1 is the adoption of the regular board meeting minutes of October 14th, 2020.
If there's no errors or omissions, I see Director Morrison moved and Director Smith second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On to public input period.
Thank you. So we have two issues to discuss before the beginning of public input. One is that we've received a substantial volume of public input for this meeting. So I would ask the directors if we would entertain a motion at this time to extend public input period to accommodate the number of public inputs. So it's been moved by Director Hames, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion on that? Director Marsh.
Do we have any idea how long we would be extending that?
It's hard to say. I don't want to put the pressure on Ms. Legault to read super fast, but I would
So
say
it's not like 2 hours or anything like that?
No, but it might be lengthy, I would say, significantly longer than usual, maybe twice as long.
I'm not sure what usual is, so.
15 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. The next one is we have had several requests from submissions to withhold their personal information at the author's request. So I believe this may have been done in the past, but there are several requests to withhold their personal information. Was that a move to support it, Director Morrison? Do I have a seconder? Director McGonigal, any discussion on that? Director Sebring.
That seems a little bit unusual to me. In the, if we weren't in a remote meeting, like input would be somebody.
You're all broken up, Al.
See who they were.
Sorry, Director Sebring, if you could restate that. Unfortunately, your audio and video were garbled there.
I'm sorry. I'll turn off my video. Maybe that'll help. I said, I find this request to be somewhat unusual. If we were not in COVID times, the only means of public input would be to stand at the podium where everybody could see who you were. And I mean, if the request is that we scrape the email address out of the input, that's fine in terms of contact information. But if this motion goes to the notion that we want anonymous public input, I'm not for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers to this? I think I saw Director Acton. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I echo the concerns to Director Sebring, because having the opportunity to give anonymous input can be very problematic, and that's why we have play speak and those type of things. Are these emails that maybe have already been distributed and we could avoid just reading them out?
I'll put that through to Ms. Legault, but I do not believe these emails have been distributed, and the request was made based on, it seems like there's a volume of submissions here that have asked their personal information to be withheld. Ms. Legault, can you maybe speak to that?
I don't have an exact number here, possibly 4 or 5 that requested that their names be withheld in relation to a land use application.
follow-up?
Yeah, so I think we did receive those emails, and I understand if it's a neighborhood dispute because people don't want to cause friction with their neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
So could we maybe lump them into one comment or acknowledge that I do believe we have received all those emails?
Thank you. Again, I'm just following through with the request of the people that made the submissions. They wanted them read during public input, but were concerned about their personal information being disclosed. So I'll go to Director Marsh, and then I think I saw someone else's hand, but I may have missed it. Okay, go ahead, Director Marsh.
So, is it procedurally allowed to do that, Ms. Legault?
Through the chair, the policy is silent on that, although our custom in the organization is to have people state their name or to have their name read.
Yeah, I guess
Follow up?
I'm actually, yes, thank you, sorry. I'm actually leaning towards allowing it if Ms. Legault can verify that they're actually real people, and I don't know if she can do that. And it's only because, I've been eaten alive since yesterday morning, and a lot of stuff's been said about me on social media. And, that comes with this rule. But, okay, so but I'm not sure if then, are there directions if we refuse and want to say their names that they won't give their input?
I believe if someone's concerned to the point where they don't want their personal information shared, it would be hard to share their input and give their name out when they've asked it to be withheld. So we would have to withhold that input.
Okay, so I'm assuming, may I have another follow-up?
I've got other speakers, but if you have a quick follow-up, please go ahead.
Well, I'm assuming that it might be something happening in Director Acton's area, and it sounds like she may. Oh no, she's saying no. Okay, well, I don't know what to say because if they're fake people, that wouldn't be too good. But if they're real people concerned about repercussions, since there's no policy, I don't see on what basis we could deny them.
Thank you. I will put it through to, sorry, my screen just moved around. I had Director Wilson and then Director Yanni DiNardo. Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand where this request has come from, but having said that, if you send an email to the board as is, it's in the public arena already, and I'm torn on this one. I would like to see to protect the privacy of these guys. I'm fairly certain, in fact, I'm 100% certain that they are real people. So I would be inclined to, I don't know which way I'm going to go on this one. I'll just leave that to the rest of them.
Thank you. I'll go to Director Yanni DiNardo, and then I'll go to Director Duncan, and then hopefully we can vote. Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I can vouch that these are all real people and they are from Area D.
Thank you. Director Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is called the public input period. And so it's public information. If you provided input, normally, as you say, people would provide their name if they were in person. So I would have to say, I believe that it's public information. So.
Thank you. So no further discussion. I'll call the question. Oh, Director Marsh.
Just in response to Director Duncan, the public will still get the information. So if there's 4 people on the board who say they're real people, I don't think that's So
again, we're just debating the motion, not other people's perspectives on it. Is there any further discussion, or can I call the question? So this would be.
What's the motion?
The motion is whether we grant the wishes to redact the personal information from the public input. If you vote against it, we will not read those items. If you vote for it, we will read them with their personal information withheld. And I think I saw alternate Director Duncan. No, okay. So I'm going to call the question, and I believe Director Nicholson's having challenges with her video. So Director Nicholson, when the vote's called, I'll just ask you to say yay or nay. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Yes.
And opposed? We have directors Haim, Kuhn, Sebring, and Duncan opposed. The motion carries. All right, moving on. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Legault, for the public input period.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item is from Nicholas Yaremchuk regarding DVP 20D01, which is item CR 210 on this agenda. I'm writing on behalf of myself and my wife, Gina Sicotti, who are the applicants for a variance and development permit on Fairbanks Road in Cowichan Bay. Our application for a variance was denied last week by the EASC of the CVRD, and we are writing to respectfully request the application be returned to staff so that the concerns raised at the meeting can be addressed and we can revise our application. Returning the application to staff would work best for us, as we would like the opportunity to address the concerns of the size of our home and the footprint of the foundation, the height of our home, questions about slope stability. With regard to the size and height of our home, we are willing to make adjustments to our plan to reduce the footprint and height and therefore reduce the size of the variance requested. With regard to the concerns about slope stability, we are willing to make our geotechnical engineer, Andrew Jackson or Rysick Engineering in Victoria, available to explain his assessment and assure the neighbours that his professional opinion is valid and has integrity. The reports from various professionals are attached to our application, and the professionals involved are available for questions or concerns. Ian Ralston, our septic engineer, represented us last week at the meeting as we expected technical questions about our reports and assessments. We now recognize that we should have made ourselves more available to neighbours, the committee, and the planners at the time and earlier. We apologize for any confusion or stress we caused in our neighbourhood. We met today with CVRD staff and are grateful for the feedback of Emily Dixon and Frank Limshew as we consider how to address the concerns. This process is entirely new for us, and we are happy to compromise on the plan as we try to build this house and establish our family home in the Cowichan Valley. We respectfully request that you note the hardship that we will face without a variance, as the building within the current setbacks will result in a house that is 14.6 feet deep from slope setback to road setback. Additionally, without a variance, we will end up building a home that will not suit the neighbourhood and will look out of place, affecting our investment and the investment of our neighbours. Both the builder and designer have expressed it would be a hardship to build without the variance from a design perspective and construction perspective. We have their support in this application, and they're willing to work with us and the CVRD planners to find a solution on a reasonable timeline. We respectfully request that the board gives us this opportunity to work with planners to find a compromise and revise our application. The next item is with respect to item UB1 from Diane Allen, South Cowichan. Dear CVRD board members, the main aim of public participation is to encourage the public to have meaningful input into the decision-making process. Public participation thus provides the opportunity for communication between our elected officials making decisions and the public. This member of the public would be greatly disappointed if our democratic right was removed, or as suggested, an official would summarize our letter, but at whose expense? Please allow the practice to remain, and perhaps limit to the first 5 letters that are received by the board that are respectful and remain within the topic on the agenda, and limit the words to what can be read out within 2 minutes, a total of 10 minutes when all letters are combined. The next item is with regard to CR2 number 10, the DVP 20D01 from Aine and Richard Cargill. Thank you for your deliberation regarding the above proposed development. We are very pleased with the eventual outcome. It has come to our attention today that the property owner has been privately lobbying directors in regard to changing the decision. It was clear to us from listening to the meeting that Mr. Yaremchuk was given an opportunity to build, one that perhaps didn't require a variance. I'd like to assume that if appeals are part of the process, privately appealing to individual directors is not the required process. We'd like to add some additional concerns in regards to information that may not have been shared or made available to the committee on the day. We have lived here for 27 years, and as far as we know, the taxes on Lot 6 have been far below what other lots in the subdivision are assessed at, as it was deemed not possible to build on within the guidelines for a building lot in this area. Mr. Yaremchuk sold the house on Lot 6 a number of years ago and parceled off Lot 7 and tried to sell it separately. It was listed by realtors, and although there was interest, it was not sold and was subsequently taken off the market because of the difficulty obtaining permits to build. Several neighbors over the years have offered to purchase the lot and expand their own properties, but were not successful. The owner applied to have a well drilled and could not get a permit from VHA. He had another company drill. He requested another company to drill the well, but wouldn't do it without a permit as the well was too close to other septic fields in adjacent properties. He eventually found a drilling company who agreed to drill without permit. We noted that other septic fields and their proximity to this well were not mentioned in the original meeting, only one on Lot 7. We also learned after contacting the Ministry of Transportation that there is in fact an easement on Lot 7, and in place is a culvert of approximately 20 inches that runs under the road, and all the water from the ditch flows onto that lot for drainage for the entire lower road. We were told it cannot be disturbed or plugged, so we have concerns about a dwelling impacting the drainage. I want to thank you again for your decision last Wednesday. Ultimately, is about the health and safety of the neighborhood, the safety of water and sewer, and maintaining the integrity of the slope. I think it's important to uphold this decision as the right decision. The next item is again on UB1. From Donna Einerson, Cowichan Valley. I'm writing to ask the board to keep the current public input period. I appreciate the ability to communicate with the CVRD board members in a public forum. Taking away or drastically changing public input does not give the general public the opportunity to express their opinions towards an agenda item, either pro or con. Do you really want to muzzle your citizens? Did this work for North Cowichan? Perhaps make it known that each letter must be short and succinct. Item UB1 from Rob Sankpil, Cobble Hill. Folks, you're in danger of falling to one Cowichan's threat. Really? Do you not have legal services? Use them. The next submission is from Brenda Dawn, Cobble Hill, on item UB1. Dear board members, I wish to thank the board for the opportunity to participate in public input portion of CVRD meetings in recent years. It is encouraging to find public engagement is valued by the board, and it is included in the corporate strategic plan on SR1 on today's agenda. Page 6, engagement focused. We seek and appreciate public participation and incorporate the feedback we receive in our decision making. I trust the public input period will remain on CVRD agendas in the future, since public participation is part of the strategic plan and it is the public's most direct link to our elected officials. Back to the development application. And sorry, just so you know, I'm reading them in the order they were received. On CR 210, this is a submission where the name was requested to be withheld. Dear CVRD Board of Directors, I'm writing to express my sincere gratitude for the decision made by the EASC to deny the development variance permit on Fairbanks Road in Cowichan Bay at the meeting on October 21st. The committee made the right decision to protect the health and safety of the neighborhood by denying this variance permit. I ask that the CVRD board respect the committee's decision and not challenge it. The well-being of an entire community is at stake. This development variance permit is to build a house that is far too large for a small lot. The applicant is also asking to place this large house too close to the narrow road without any regard for how this will impact the neighbors or the street access. The plan also includes a poorly designed septic field that runs down the bank in the sensitive riparian zone, thus threatening the bank's stability. The Ministry of Environment should be called in to review. It may be helpful to learn that the applicants previously owned the house next door as well as Lot 7, which had been the yard to the house for the past 50 years. They decided to sell the yard separately from the house, despite knowing that the lot had always been considered impossible to build on or develop in any way for many reasons. They were warned by multiple experts that it was not possible to build on the lot without extensive slope mitigation measures to counteract these instability and slides to the bank. The homeowners have been trying to sell the lot for most of the last 6 years at a price which is over assessed value. The owners have refused multiple offers on the lot, even though they were more than assessed value, and now they want to maximize plans to flip the property and make a profit. This lot has always been a yard for the neighboring house for 50 years and needs to remain so because it is simply too small and too complex a lot to develop without jeopardizing the safety of neighboring properties. Please respect the EASC decision to deny this variance permit and protect the neighboring properties, and thank you for listening to my concerns. The next item is from Jane Barton Greg. On UB1, I'm concerned that the board is considering limiting the amount of time for input from the community at a board meeting. I can understand the board's frustration with long-winded letters and your desire to get on with your meeting. However, I have stuck this on my kitchen window. Decisions should be made based on principles, not on the current situation. And the quote is attributed to Jim Stovall. After thoughtful consideration, I do believe that the principles of public input, community participation, and yes, allowing the little old lady to be equally heard really are the principles required for decisions by our elected board members. I respectfully request that there be as much time allocated as is required to hear letters submitted by the public at board meetings. The next item is also on UB1 from Cliff Evans. He repeats the recommendation on the agenda and states that he doesn't agree with the chair making a verbal summary of the public input to the meeting as, 1, the chair has more than enough work to do running the meeting without these extra duties. 2, the public should be able to join the virtual meeting and deliver the public comments without being censored with the exception of inappropriate language or subject. 3, having the public's letter read at a very rapid rate and censored is not letting the public express their views in a meaningful way and is not within the spirit of open and transparent meetings, as per the Ombudsperson's Open Meetings Best Practices Guide for Local Governments, which we should be striving for when we eventually go into stage 4 of COVID-19. In stage 3 of COVID-19, restating local government plans allow for more social and economic activity, not censorship of public input. Please vote for a meeting procedure that encourages and supports public input. The next item is on CR 210 with a request to withhold a name. We applaud the decision made by the Variance Committee to deny the development permit for Lot 7. It offered considerable relief to us. However, nothing has changed regarding the dangers of construction on this small, steep, and erosion-prone building site. Safety to the applicants and surrounding properties must be the paramount issue. Decisions must be backed by good engineering, not personal matters. Considering that there are significant differences between professional geotechs and hydrogeologists as to what can be safely built or built at all, we urge the board not to overturn the previous variance denial. And he's repeated his submission to the Electoral Area Services Committee as well. The next item is on UB1 from Diane Moen, North Cowichan. Dear CVRD board members, I'm asking you by way of this letter to please reconsider the recommendation to amend the public input period procedure as outlined on today's agenda under UB1, resulting from discussions at October 14th regular board meeting. It appears that the word public in public input period is being misinterpreted by some on council as being citizens of the municipality instead of it being interpreted as not private. Likely the terminology is meant to indicate both definitions. The term and its interpretation need explication, and I believe we as citizens deserve to have a conversation with council about this before the rules around our participation at the table are arbitrarily changed. Citizens not only want to be heard by council, they want to hear the concerns of each other in the contextual setting, and 5 public slots of 3 minutes each is not too much to expect. Alluding to that citizen input would be more rigorously attended if treated in the newly proposed procedure as highly suspect, as citizens expect all their correspondence to be addressed conscientiously by staff and council. If council needs more time, maybe the agendas could come out earlier than 2 business days prior to the meeting. In closing, I would like to add that having our letters of concern summarized and conveyed by one individual instead of heard and digested by all, including staff and the outside citizenry, leads to interpretation, subjectivity, and non-transparency. This should not be taken lightly by our paid representatives, nor shall it be taken lightly by the residents of the CVRD. The next item is also on UB1 from Ed Veroni, Cowichan Valley. I'm writing to ask the board to keep the current public input period. I appreciate the ability to communicate with the CVRD board members in a public forum. Taking away or drastically changing public input does not give the general public the opportunity to express their opinions towards an agenda item, either pro or con. Do you really want to muzzle your citizens? The next item is also on CR 210 with a request to withhold name. Please consider my input. I want to write to express my gratitude and relief at the decision made by the Electoral Area Services Committee on October 21st to deny the DVP on Lot 7 at Fairbanks Road. The committee made the right decision to safeguard the health and safety of the neighborhood by denying this request, and I ask the CVRD board to uphold this decision for the well-being of our entire community on Fairbanks Road. This ambitious development application is to build a house that is far too large for a very small lot and place the house much too close to the narrow road. The plan is for a 3-story house, not 2 stories as reported at the committee meeting, and it is expected to be at least 4,300 square feet or more. The other houses on the street are older and smaller cabins and cottages. The plan also includes a risky and poorly designed septic system with a large underground sewage tank to be precariously dug into the crest of the slope in the sensitive riparian zone where there are clear and documented signs of instability, erosion, and overland seepage causing continuous slides. The zigzagging infiltration field going down the bank is not a safe proposal for the stability of the bank and does not offer protection for the sensitive foreshore. I realize that a geotech has stamped approval of this design. How the report did not survey other properties for stability issues or even include the underground storage tank. So how can we neighbors trust that the plan is sound? Further geotech reports on the block have determined that a dwelling should not be constructed closer than 30 meters from the bank. However, this proposed house will be situated between 8 to 10 meters from the bank. I understand it is not the CVRD's process to question professional reports, but this process is flawed and needs to be revised. A new policy should be established so that a much more thorough and independent geotechnical review is required when construction is being considered in the riparian area with a history of slides. We should not be solely relying on one geotech report for construction on this lot. A further issue with construction on this lot is it does not have guaranteed water access since there is no well on the property. Because the lot is so small, there was not sufficient space to drill a well on the lot, as well as observe the safe setback regulations from neighboring septic fields. To get around the regulations, the applicant paid a driller to dig a well on the road right-of-way. This well is currently too close to neighboring septic fields and should not be allowed to remain in the road right-of-way. The Ministry of Transportation did not approve this letter with their letter. The letter indicates they will not request the removal of the well at this time. However, they put the owner on notice that should any health and safety issues arise with the well, the road stability or bank stability, the well will need to be decommissioned at the owner's expense. If Island Health were called in to measure the distance from the well to the neighboring septic fields, they would determine the well is in violation of the 100-foot setback to neighboring septic fields. I applaud directors on the committee for recognizing this variance in the construction plan are problematic for a number of reasons. The committee made the right decision to deny and thereby chose to protect the neighboring properties instead of capitulating to the interests of one owner with a difficult lot to develop before they separated it from the house next door, which they used to own. This lot has only ever been a yard and was considered unsuitable for development. There was another lot deemed unsuitable for development on Fairbanks Road, which was purchased by 2 neighboring property owners years ago instead of risking development. Just because this lot was established in 1970 doesn't mean it was safe to develop now when we know more about the risks. And that's the end of that. The next one is also on this development application. I'm concerned that the health and safety of my family have not been considered and every opportunity to mitigate risks to the Fairbanks community has not been taken. I'd like to publicly oppose the proposed development on the property located at 1110 Fairbanks Road in Cowichan Bay. This proposed development has not considered the effects it will have on the neighboring properties, and the plan does not adequately protect the health and safety of my family and the environment. This variance will adversely impact my family's safety by further restricting visibility and access to my property. Additionally, there are many omissions from the professional report with respect to the stability of the bank. These concerns would have been expressed in person to the applicant and any of the qualified professionals who completed the work on the property, but as I was not consulted prior to the variance application. No person or professional is above question when it comes to the health and safety of the public and environment. I ask the board to ratify and uphold the committee's decision to deny the variance permit. I would be happy to provide further details if required, and this one is signed Bryce Watson. Next is Bernard Yearlink, re-item SR6 and SR7. Earlier this month, there was a do not drink the water notice at several sites along Shawnigan Lake because of foul tasting and foul smelling water. This was associated with the presence of a number of algal species as well as cyanobacteria. Fortunately, there were no cyanotoxins present. Shawnigan Lake used to be an oligotrophic lake, but this is no longer the case. A large amount of nutrients is entering the lake. A major source of nutrients is the sediment arising from local landfill operations. The reasons why citizens wish to have a soil deposit bylaw is to prevent such nutrient-containing sediments entering the lake. I urge the CVRD to re-examine the soil deposit bylaw to introduce changes that will protect our watershed during this process, and during this process listen to input from citizens. And also on item UB1, concerned about the public input period recommendation. The problem is that input is being interpreted by the chair and could potentially result in censorship of public input. 2 more. This one has request to withhold the name on CR 210. I'd like to thank you for making the right decision at last week's committee meeting on Lot 7, Fairbanks Road. It's of utmost importance that you ratify the decision to deny the variance today in order to preserve the health and safety of all community members living on Fairbanks Road. The applicant has owned this recreational lot since the early 2000s in conjunction with the house next door. This lot has been enjoyed as a side yard since the 70s. Upon selling the main residence, the applicant listed Lot 7 for sale separately from the main house, and the lot remained remained for sale for years. The owner has refused multiple offers over assessed value, quoting nothing under $600,000. The applicant went into this process with eyes wide open, knowing fully that Lot 7 on Fairbanks Road was impossible to develop. This is why he had to pay a company to drill a well after other companies refused to do so. This is why he has had to temper with the culvert to block the water flowing. We ask that you consider this, and with the name withheld. And the final submission is from Susan Kaufman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I wish to speak to item 3 of today's agenda. Oops. Okay, so this is respect to the public input policy. The purpose of both these policies for the public to address our elected officials and have the opportunity to ask questions based on the information and discussions of the public meetings. The board is asking for 30 minutes or longer time limits for submission, but not offering a mere 10 minutes break prior to question period to allow the public ask informed questions after all agenda items are discussed. The staff report did not adequately represent the concerns that members of the public have raised in meetings or correspondence to directors and staff members related to process, censorship, and question period. The ministerial order, M192, does address and encourage local governments to allow virtual participation of the public in electronic meetings and develop policies to address public participation. COVID-19 will be with us for the foreseeable future. It would seem prudent that the CVRD make budgetary allocations and that staff training would be a focus to allow for good governance, openness, and transparency of the proceedings. Mr. Chair, formation of policies and the heavy lifting of those discussions are usually done at the Corporate Services Committee and then voted on at a subsequent board meeting, giving the public opportunity to engage with staff and, most importantly, with you, the decision makers. In the spirit of openness and transparency, I would ask that this matter be referred to the Corporate Services Committee for a more fulsome discussion. And that concludes public input period.
Whew, thank you, Ms. Legault. Anybody need a break? So we're only 35 minutes in, so we can continue. I believe that's it for public input, so we'll go back to you, Ms. Legault, to introduce the delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item D1 is our delegation, Patricia Daynell, Community Energy Association, with a presentation on the 2020 Climate and Energy Action Award Adaptation category for information.
Ms. Daynell, please go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I come to you from Nelson, BC. Now I have a PowerPoint presentation that I believe I am sharing. So bear with me for a moment. All right. I hope you can see my presentation. Yes.
We can, but we can also see your slide notes.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's, there's no secrets.
Okay.
So
Please go ahead.
Oh, actually, maybe. No.
You just need to swap the view there. You had the rights. There you go. Please go ahead.
Okay, there I am. All right. Good afternoon, Board of Directors. It's my pleasure to be with you virtually to celebrate the Climate and Action Energy Award win by the Cowichan Valley Regional District. I'm Patricia Daynell. I'm the Community Relations Manager with Community Energy Association, and I was the 2020 Award Coordinator, a year like no other. And, sorry, next page. There we go. So congratulations. I am pleased to be here. representing the CEA and our award sponsors, as I congratulate you, Board Chair Aaron Stone, and all of the directors. And there's CAO Brian Carruthers, former Kootenay resident, and your asset coordinator, Austin Tukarak, as well as all of the CVRD staff. So congratulations on receiving the 2020 Climate and Energy Action Award in the Climate Adaptation category for Climate Risk Assessment Framework for Infrastructure. This award was announced virtually to the attendees of the UBCM convention on September 23rd, 2020. I'll begin this presentation with just some background on the Community Energy Association, and then Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and then move on to the awards. So the Community Energy Association is a nonprofit organization founded in 1995, 25 years ago, by UBCM and the province to help BC local governments with energy planning and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. One of the ways we do this is we recognize local government achievement is through the Climate and Energy Action Awards. Other tools we have available to support local governments, including CVRD, they are things like community energy and emission planning, supporting and obtaining FCM, the Partners for Climate Protection milestones. We've got ongoing BC Municipal Climate Leadership training and coaching for the locally elected officials, and there's electric vehicle infrastructure planning, among other things. As a nonprofit society, CEA has members, and our members are recognized as leaders in inspiring and delivering climate action across BC. As part of your award today, it includes a one-year complimentary membership to CEA for 2021. And we invite CVRD representation at our next quarterly meeting and throughout 2021. We hope you continue membership for many years to come. And these member meetings are a great way to stay current on climate action innovation happening in BC. As for the Partners for Climate Protection program, it provides structure and context for climate action in two categories. And the Cowichan Valley has been a PCP member since 2008, achieving milestone 4 in the corporate operations and milestone 2 in community-wide action. Partners for Climate Protection is a network of over 350 municipalities. It's a commitment to reduce GHGs and act on climate change, and it's a partnership between FCM and ICLEI. And on that note, we thank our sponsors of the 2020 Climate and Energy Action Awards. That's UBCM, the Province of British Columbia, Real Estate Foundation of BC, Fortis BC, and BC Hydro. And the drum roll, please. From an array of strong and innovative 2020 Climate and Energy Action Award nominations, the independent judging panel selected the Cowichan Valley Regional District in the Climate Adaptation category for its Climate Risk Assessment Framework for Infrastructure submission. The judges noted the following. This is a detailed framework that enables staff to integrate climate change impacts into long-term infrastructure planning. It's an evidence-based and thorough approach. It incorporates natural assets, and its cost-effectiveness, replicable, and making all resources and tools available on your CVRD website to share your experience. I want to note that winning projects, including this one, will be highlighted in the December 2020 edition of the Municipal World magazine. So make sure you get your copy. And finally, in response to the unique year that 2020 has proven to be, a virtual celebration video was prepared. So I'm going to play the video now. It's 6 minutes, and then I will return to, we'll have our virtual photo celebration. So I'm hoping this works. Otherwise, I believe IT is lined up to play the video. So I'll just start it and make sure you can hear it. Can you hear that? No. Can IT play that for me?
We're just giving it up.
Okay, I'll turn mine mute.
Still can't hear it, Mr. Chair.
He's working on it.
The virtual awards celebration draws attention to all of the communities taking progressive action on reducing emissions and protecting community assets. This local government action is vital to retaining community livability in the context of a changing climate.
That is the best we seem to be able to get on the audio, so listen carefully if you're able. We can hear it a little bit, I believe. Can anyone not hear it at all? Okay, I would.
2020 Climate and Action Award nominated projects show
I'm
exceptional
not hearing a
climate
thing.
leadership. And the nominees are City of Abbotsford, Green Fleet Strategy, Cowichan Valley Regional District, Climate Risk Assessment Framework for Infrastructure.
Yeah, I got nothing either.
Village of Caslow, Streetlight Retrofit Project. City of Nanaimo.
That's unfortunate
Climate
you
Change
can't hear it.
Resilience
I will
Strategy.
provide the link to
City
you
of North Vancouver,
later.
accelerating
Hopefully
the
we can
transition to
just
zero-emission
see,
vehicles.
it's actually fairly
District North
self-explanatory
Vancouver, Impact
just by the
2050,
pictures.
Community Energy and
So
Emissions Plan.
unless IT can
City
help
of
with
Powell
the
River,
audio,
Climate action in a
I
small
think we'll
coastal
just
town.
leave it like
District
this.
of Saanich, 2020 Climate Plan, 100% renewable and resilient Saanich.
Mr. Chair, if I could suggest that we can look at the link later on, as it's going to be a long day. I do want to see this, but I'd much prefer it with the sound, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, and if that's, Ms. Donnell, if that's okay, we'll distribute the link for the video, and maybe we can just leave that for now, because although we can hear the audio in here, it's not coming through the WebEx.
That is absolutely okay. We really did want to celebrate you all, and it's a chance to see other winners and hear from the sponsors. And I do encourage you to watch it on your own time. And well, as I said, it is a year like no others. And one silver lining is we have this lovely video of all of the winners for posterity. So yes, please, on your own time, have a view, and I will move to finishing up this presentation, which is really just, I think my last slide is just a thank you slide with my name. So I'll just go from here, saying on behalf of the Community Energy Association and our co-sponsors, I congratulate you on your inspiring achievement. This award is an important celebration of your success at this point in the journey. I hope to have the pleasure to present, there it is, future awards in person to the CVRD to celebrate ongoing leadership in climate action. So congratulations. Yeah, well done. We were really, really pleased by your project. So yeah, hands up.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the directors for more than virtual clap. We're so thankful for the award, and also just to our staff and to the board that supports this work. I want to say thank you, because without this work, we wouldn't be receiving this award today, and we wouldn't be making the meaningful steps we need to make in terms of climate change, in terms of adaptation, and also looking forward to mitigation as we move forward. So thank you very much, Ms. Donnell. Is there anything else you would like to say before I believe maybe a couple of directors may want to make a comment?
I'll just say that before I tune out, I hope that we can get a screenshot or something with you holding as our sort of, as the photo op. So
Yes, and we actually will take
are
a
we able to
proper,
do that?
we will
Okay.
also take a proper photograph. Actually, they were doing that now, but I will sort of stand in front of the thing and get a proper photo to you after the meeting.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you. So I guess well, you're the chair, but I do see a question.
Yeah,
So.
I've got a speakers list here. I think
Okay.
I have Director Wilson and then Director Morrison. Go ahead, Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Professor Patricia. I do apologise. You sound very pleased about this, and this is great. And I'm just looking at page 2, where you say congratulations, and it seems it's obvious that your organisation is happy, even overjoyed, with the actions and the procedures that the CVRD has and is still taking. So the question I have is, has this presentation, or will this presentation be given or shared with any other organizations in this area? No names, of course, but will you be sharing this with anyone?
Well,
Go ahead. It's available on YouTube now, and the link will be sent out. So I would encourage all of the directors to share through your social media channels or through your newsletters. But Ms. Donnell, I don't know if there's any other avenues of distribution that you're pursuing, but go ahead.
Yeah, when the video was released, when you were winners at the UBCM conference, that it did go onto their website. It's on our website. We've tried to splash it on social media, but yes, as Chair Stone said, please share widely. And that's another part of the reason why we try to do an in-person or virtual presentation to the winners to, again, give some recognition within your community. So please share.
And just a very quick follow-up, Chair, if I may. And yeah, thank you for that. And I would ask that the CVRD IT puts this up on our website as well, so that it is well spread. The work that is being done here in climate change and adaptation. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a bit of a speakers list forming now. I will go to Director Morrison, then McGonigal, then Marsh. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I have a comment and a question for our delegation. I firstly want to repeat what Patricia said earlier about the great work done by our staff that are not only dedicated to it, but the rank and file folks that in filling out their mileage forms and the type of vehicles and all of the work that goes into the calculation of what we do corporately and how that's tracked and all the mitigation work that's done. It's not done by the 15 of us around the table. It's done by the people that help run this organization, and I want to tip my hat to them for that great work. My question is really around, we're in challenging times, and like you said, this would have been a presentation at UBCM, and people would have hammed it up for the photograph on stage, and we've had history of that before with past directors, and it's all good fun. But when we get down to the serious side of this, is that there are very passionate views from especially our youth who are having challenges getting their passion and their message across around the impacts of climate change and how they want to see so much more done, and there's competing interests on other sides. And so my question for you is when your board meets and when your members meet, given that COVID has really thrown a wet blanket on so much work that needs to be done, what's the type of discussion and where do you think you're going to further the aims and objectives of the organization, while taking into account there's very passionate and informed views on many different perspectives that want to be heard and want to see your aims and objectives advanced? So what kind of discussion is going on at your board and group level?
That's for me.
That's for you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start by saying that I'm I'm a professional planner, and I've spent a number of hours in this chair today because I just gave a webinar for the Planning Institute of BC on social justice and climate equity, and we were just speaking about that exact point. We had a very engaged youth or young planner talk about exactly the issues that you're raising, Director Morrison. Yes, it's as a planner, it's our goal and it's our mantra to help everybody to work for, think about the past, work on the present, and look into the future, justice for all and equity lens. So I think possibly it's an emerging trend within climate action, but absolutely it's not forgotten on us. And we actually look to the local governments and leaders like yourself to bring those emerging issues forward. And, CEA acts on what our members and our communities want, what they want to do. Yes, we provide the guidance, but it does come from you and your constituents. So, thank you for raising the issue, and all of us need to be heard, from the youth to the seniors to the, different race, creed, all of us, people, one person.
Thank you very much. Okay, go to Director McGonigal and then Director Marsh to close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. For you to Patricia, thank you very much for your presentation. I look forward to hearing the each of you. I think it's important that we embrace recognition by NGOs on our actions that we have forwarded, whether they be baby steps or giant leaps. I think what we are doing is getting to the end as we move forward. Looking forward in our strategic plan, we will be addressing some of the concerns further in climate action within that strategic plan. You did mention that there was an opportunity for a one-year membership, and I would just like to state that I would be interested in representing the CBRD on that, if so desired. Thank you.
Sorry, Director McGonigal, you were fading in and out there, but I think we got the gist of it. And I believe we have been members of CEA for some time as an organization, but this year it's comped as part of the award receipt. So thank you very much for that. And I will go to Director Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to give a shout out to all the youth and other demonstrators, to all the First Nations on whose land we're privileged to live, and most especially at this moment to Mr. Carruthers and his staff for always going above and beyond and seldom being recognized for it. This could never, ever, ever have happened without you. I'll just end by saying in 2013, North Cowichan won an award from CEA, and we were in Vancouver, and we had a minister present to us, and it was one of the most exciting moments of my life, because I, as chair of our environment committee, along with the mayor and the minister, he handed the thing to both of us, and we had the opportunity to say what people are saying here. If it wasn't for the public, and I know we don't have a commission structure right now, but certainly the commission probably laid a lot of the groundwork many years ago. This has been step by step by step. We're climbing a long hill, and wow, I'm just blown away. I'm surprised, because we've had so much flack about not declaring the emergency, but it sounds like, quietly, or maybe not so quietly in the background, our staff have been doing the work. And to win above all other in this category, all other regional districts and perhaps municipalities, I don't know the details, in the province, is just astoundingly wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the board and our communities and our organization, thank you very much, Ms. Donnell, for presenting us with this award, but all the work that you do in your organization, and the recognition does go a long way in terms of continuing to recognize those who are taking action where it's appropriate, and also to encourage us to continue moving forward. So thank you very much for coming today, and we're clapping for you, not for ourselves.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good afternoon.
Have a wonderful afternoon. I was going to say evening, but we're not quite there yet. Good night.
Okay. Good night.
All right. Ms. Legault, I just have a brief report from the chairperson, and then we'll resume. So I don't have a lot of things to say, but this may very well be my last meeting as chair, and I just want to thank you all very much for challenging and a year full of learning for myself and for all of us, going from the floods in February and directly into COVID after that, and here we are all having many dramatic changes thrust upon us over this year. So I just wanted to say thank you. Like I said, it's been a challenging year, but I never regret the effort that I put in this year and everything that I've learned. So it's never perfect, but if we're always learning, we can always stand with pride and dignity that we did our best. And I did my very best this year to support all of you in a very difficult time. And I just wanted to say thank you for the support this year. But we'll see what comes in the future. So as this may be that last opportunity I get from report from the chairperson, I just wanted to thank all of you, both staff and the board, for your support this year. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No correspondence or information items. So on to committee and commission reports. CR1 is the report and recommendations of the Corporate Services Committee meeting of October 14th, 2020.
Director McGonigal, this is your show. Take it away.
Mr. Chair, is my volume better?
No. I can hear you, but just speak very strongly, and I'm sure we'll hear you. But it's for some reason, seems like your microphone's turned down or something. But go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report and recommendation of the Corporate Services Committee that the CBRD continue to participate as a member of the Coastal Communities Social Procurement Initiative to explore opportunities, access training, and pursue next steps for social procurement in alignment with the updated corporate strategic plan. And 2, that the following short-term action items be pursued in 2021 to support social procurement and economic recovery tools. There's 3 parts to that. One being work with CCSBI on advancing a request for information process to identify a directory of local social enterprises and businesses available to respond to smaller dollar goods and services requests as a means to recognize community benefits and support economic recovery activities. 2 of that, with assistance from CCSBI, develop pilot projects to test social procurement criteria in action, evaluate results, and apply lessons learned to refine objectives and best practices and long-term policy updates. And 3 of that, report back to the board with findings, lessons learned, and potential policy updates for consideration in late 2021. Number 2, that the CBRD refund $580.75 to the owners of each property charged 2 parcel taxes as a result of the school district's boundary adjustment in Saltaire, subject to the following. 1, property owner providing CBRD with a letter to the parcel tax roll review panel requesting omission of the second folio from the 2021 Saltaire parcel tax, water parcel tax roll. And 2, proof of payment of 2 parcel taxes in 2020 for said water parcel tax. And number 3, there's 4 parts to that. Number 1, that a referendum to seek electoral approval to implement usage-based funding of the 9 regionally significant recreation facilities be held in conjunction with local government elections in October 2022. Number 2, that $50,669 of the regional feasibility reserve fund be used towards regional recreation communication and public approval costs. Number 3, that staff prepare a supplemental request to include $20,000 in the 2021 and 2022 budgets under function 100, general government, towards the cost of the referendum in 2022. And finally, that staff prepare a supplemental request to include $25,000 in the 2021-2022 budgets under function 100, general government, for facility use analysis in 2021-2022. With that, I move those recommendations.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion on those? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask the board now if they wish to have a break. I believe that some people take them after an hour. I usually go 90 minutes, but it feels like a long hour. So we'll just take a 5-minute break and we'll come back to the EASC recommendations. Thank you. We're buffering.
Blaze, that was me. Just saying, get onto the air there.
All right, we're back. Thank you very much, and appreciate everybody coming back as quickly as possible. And I believe we're on CR2, Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. CR2 is the report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of October 21st, 2020.
Director Morrison, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should ask before we get started, are there any directors want any items pulled?
And your microphone's now up on your head, so we can barely hear you, but I believe I'll go to Director Nicholson first.
Thank you. I'd like 6 pulled, please.
Sorry, which one?
6, please.
Okay. Any others? This is the EAS recommendations. Director McGonigal?
Like number 3 pulled, please, just for clarification.
Any others?
Why would Director McGonigal pull Saltaire's water report?
Director Marsh?
These are for the whole board, sir.
I wasn't going to speak because Director McGonigal said what I was going to say, but it's my understanding, and if, certainly if I'm wrong, we need a workshop, that if I'm voting on something, I'm allowed to say something about it.
Thank you.
So that's why I think we should be allowed. Yeah.
Thank you. So we're pulling, Director Morrison, you have the ones that have been pulled. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. We report and recommend as follows. Number 1, that a Grant 8 Electoral Area C Cobble Hill in the amount of $1,500 be provided to the Cobble Hill Farmers Institute to assist in the replanting costs for 8 to 9 fruit trees, which will be removed from CVRD-owned Cobble Hill Commons, and the trees in question will be a substantial community addition, providing fruit to all and saving them from destruction. 2, 1, that a certificate of sufficiency confirmed that a sufficient petition requesting inclusion into the Sentinel Ridge Sewer Service area be received. And item 2 of that is that CVRD bylaw number 2790, Sentinel Ridge Sewer System Service Establishment Bylaw 2006 be amended to include the property described as PID 004270592. And 3, that the amendment to bylaw 2790 be forwarded to the board for consideration of 3 readings, and upon payment of capacity connection fees be considered for adoption. Number 4, that the Regional District of Nanaimo be advised that the Couch Valley Regional District support the proposed bylaw amendments in the vicinity of the Nanaimo Airport. Number 5, that the report and recommendations from the Parks and Trails Division, together with the correspondence dated October 20th, 2020, from the Thetis Island Port Commission Thetis Island Community Wharf Options and Cost Projections be referred to staff. Number 7, that the 2021 draft budget for Function 250 electoral area services for, and we have 1 through 11 listed there, be reduced by 50%. And 2, that the draft budget for Function 250 general expenditures travel remain at $15,000. And I would move those items just read out.
Thank you. And seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Back to you, Director Morrison.
I will go to now item number 3, that the CVRD bylaw 2178 Saltair Water System Service Establishment bylaw 2001 be amended to increase the maximum annual requisition limit from $490,000 to $720,000 and include provisions to reduce the limit by $300,000 effective December 31st, 2027. And I move that item.
Seconded by Director Smith. Discussion. Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, if I may. I watched the EAS meeting on this subject, and I just was wondering about clarification on the petition process within the CVRD, not only for this particular function, but for others that have been incorporated currently and in the future. What the process for the petition within the CVRD actually is. If I could just have clarification on that, I'd appreciate that.
I believe I got the question there. I'll put that through to staff here. For some reason, your volume started to fade out again, but I'll go through. I believe the question was on the some clarification on the petition process that established this service or this requisition limit. That's through to staff, or Ms. Legault, if it's you, go ahead.
Of course, this was quite some time before I actually arrived at the CVRD, and petitions may be handled in different ways and in different times. This petition was specifically circulated with text that included a 15-year term to allow increased funding for some capital replacement projects. Mr. Dennison might have more information on the details of that, but the petition did include wording that spoke to 15 years, and it was in lieu of a loan authorization bylaw that this was a choice made by the community.
Thank you. Mr. Dennison, did you have anything to add to that?
Not really, Mr. Chair, that's correct. The intent was to spend money annually to do upgrades and replacement of the pipes within the system rather than a...
Mr. Dennison, we lost your audio after your first
than a
sentence.
lot to establish that approach. Oh, sorry, there was a lot of public consultation carried out to establish that approach.
Thank you. Follow up at all, Mr. Director McGonigal? No, thank you. I have Director Smith and then Director Marsh. Director Smith.
Thank you. The electoral area directors received a copy of the petition, and I'll just read it to indicate to the board directors that it says that was signed by the members of the community. You had to be a registered owner of the property. It had the description of your land, and you had to sign it. There was it followed the Local Government Act with regards to electoral assent. And it says, we understand that the maximum amount of money that may be requisitioned annually in support of the service will be increased from $190,000 to $490,000 for a period of up to 15 years. This indication, what we're asking, or what it on number 3 is to ensure that the $300,000 is reflected in the bylaw to indicate that at the end of 15 years, which is December 31st, 2027, that there will be a decrease at that time. Between now and then, many things may change, but it's to be included in the bylaw to ensure that as we change, as board staff changes, that it is there and it is reflected as to what the Saltaire taxpayers have agreed to, and that we will continue for up to December 31st, 2027. That's just reflecting it in the bylaw so that it's not lost along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Director Marsh and then Director Sebring.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Director Smith, unless I should ask staff this, but is there provisions in your bylaw to have, oh gosh, what do you call them? Reserves built in going forward after 2027, or is it everything stop in 2027 because the infrastructure is built out?
This is for a specific amount of work that was brought to the community. There was a list of projects that these funds are specifically for. Once those projects at the end of the 15 years is finished, we will look forward to the CVRD staff returning with additional projects for us to look at for funding forward. We do have reserves. We are also looking at a $3.7 million filtration system and some other water issues. So we are definitely moving along. We are working for reserves, and this is a very specific item of ensuring that it's reflected in the bylaw.
So could I have a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
So I was under the impression, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I can't watch your meetings because I'm in municipal meetings, that this was the water system. You're saying this is other things.
So maybe staff can clarify what's all in the bylaw, or Director Smith, if you'd like to, you can go ahead, but there's multiple facets that are included in the water system, and I think that part of it is the distribution system has been failing, so this is the long-term upgrade path for the distribution items, but there are other items related to the water filtration and maybe other infrastructure in the future that may be required, but Director Smith, if you want to provide any more detail on that.
Yeah, our budget is very different from a municipality. The video is available if you would like to watch it. We have taken on the distribution system for 15 years for $4.5 million. And that is a financial obligation that the community has taken. And we would like the petition is under the Local Government Act, and it has been recognized by the board in 2012. And we're just as we move forward into some other complications with our funding for the filtration system and loans and things like that, we want to make sure that it is also reflected in the bylaw.
So I'm hearing, yes, this is covering the...
Director Marsh, I'm going to go to the other speakers. If you'd like to ask another question or a follow-up, I'll come back to you. Director Sebring, Director Wilson, and then back to Director Marsh if you wish. Director Sebring.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've turned my video off. Hopefully that'll give me better audio. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how 2027 equates to 15 years. 2027 is 7 years out.
The bylaw was adopted in 2012.
Oh, I see. So this is, well, but so is this then retroactive?
Yeah, so it was just, Director Smith was saying that when it was adopted, the petition referred to 15 years and she just wants it reflected in the bylaw.
Oh, so this is all right. I didn't watch the ESC meeting. I was just trying to figure out 2027 isn't 15 years from now, but that clarifies it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand the questions from Director McGonigal and from Director Sebring, just seeking some clarification of what's going on here. I have to say, though, that Director Smith has put a huge amount of work into this. This has been debated over and over and over again by the EASC. The EASC has said that it should go forward. And with all due respect, I think we're just muddying the waters here, and that's not meant to be a pun. Can we just call the question, please? Thank you.
Director Wilson, all financial decisions come forward to the board for a full board vote. And this is a bylaw and financial bylaw decision, so I appreciate your comments. However, that's the responsibility of the entire board when it comes to this table, unless it's a land use decision under EAS directors only, but your point's taken. I'll go to Director Marsh, and then hopefully I can call the question.
Yeah, I'm quite fond of puns, I have to say, Director Wilson, and that was a clever one to muddy the marsh, but I took offense at it. I'm told, my understanding is that I'm required.
I thought I said muddy the waters, not muddy the marsh.
Sorry.
You did, but muddy waters are a marsh.
Excuse me, point of order. This is not a debate between two people about the vernacular that's used. This is a debate on the motion on the table. Thank you.
Right.
So do you have anything on the motion?
Well, what I have in the motion is that I just wanted to be sure that there was going to be some reserves. I'm still not clear if there are, but, you know, again, I feel like I've been asked by the province to vote on things, and when I ask questions, it creates problems for people. So, you know, I guess it's on.
You can ask a question to staff about the level of reserves in the water system if you wish, and staff, if you would like to provide.
I would like to know that, if it's in a healthy situation.
So I'll put that through to staff. I know the reserves are contemplated that possibly may help with the filtration costs, depending on the results of grant applications that have been submitted. But I believe I saw Mr. Dennison's hand, and he may be able to speak to that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this, just to be clear, this particular bylaw is not. There's no intention to create reserves with the money that has been approved by the customers to use. And we've been using it. We've been spending it every year on pipe replacement, and the intent is to continue to do so. Right at this moment, because we're out of compliance, Island Health is not letting us do that. But once that's been cleared off with our filtration system, we expect to continue to use all of that money for pipe replacement. So there's no component of accumulating reserves as far as this bylaw and that requisition limit change is concerned. We have a lot of liabilities in Saltaire that we are, engaged in dealing with. The filtration mandate is, we're attempting to address that. That's going to require a lot of borrowing. There's no accumulation of reserves as part of that because there's a lot of money to spend on the works that we have in hand. We also have other liabilities shared with Ladysmith on the dam that need to be covered at some point. We may or may not be able to get some grant funding for that. So I would say, to be honest, right now, there's not really, a focus on accumulating reserves because we have so many issues immediately to try and solve and spend a lot of resources on. I think later, once we've gotten through this particular period of time, then, we start thinking more about accumulating reserves for the future. There is a little bit of reserve money at this time, but there's a lot of liabilities we're engaged in right now and dealing with.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate that explanation.
Did you wish a follow-up? No? Okay.
Well,
so,
I would just follow up by saying, doing reserves it helps you when you get to times like this. But, I'm sure Director Smith knows that, and I'm sure all of staff know that.
Yeah, and I will say that Director Smith has moved forward quite aggressively on resolving the issues within the Saltaire water system.
That's great.
Thank you. I have Director Morrison, then Director Smith, and Director Haim, I believe. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a brief comment, and I was actually going to ask that the question be called, but I will support this this resolution going forward. But I've spoken with staff, and I just want to ensure as I stated at committee. The experience that the Saltaire community went through was very different than the experience that went through with to petitions in my community, and I understand the logistical challenges for putting a sunset clause into each of the bylaws around services that we provide. And it's my understanding that staff will ensure that we have a clean, with no confusion, process going forward for anyone else that does any petitions, and that we won't have to repeat this, and that staff are fully aware that the challenges that this has caused for Director Smith and her community, and that we won't find ourselves in this position again in the future by avoiding the kind of language that was included in some of the presentation and petition materials. So as long as I've got that assurance that we won't be having this discussion in the near future on other items like this, then I'm prepared to vote in favor of this moving forward. And I would call the question if the others were prepared to move forward with that now.
I see Director Smith nodding. Director Haim? Thank you very much. I'll call the question. Sorry, Ms. Legault, I believe we missed the seconder. So can I get the seconder back? I think it was Director Wilson. Thank you. So it's been moved by Director Smith, seconded by Director Wilson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Back to you, Director Morrison.
Item number 6. That staff prepare amendments to CVRD bylaw number 3422, building regulation bylaw 2011, as needed to remain consistent with the basic requirements of the BC building code. And I move that item.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Director Haim. Any discussion? Director Nicholson.
Thank you. So we're feeling the impacts of climate change in our region right now in terms of, think about rising food prices, water shortages in the summer. I'm getting increasingly worried about wildfire up our dead end road, winter flooding, and so on. And it's going to get a lot worse, it's going to get worse as we move through the century. And scientists have clearly said that we have about 10 years to turn off the greenhouse gas emissions, or we'll be on an irreversible course of self-destruction. And I saw in the news in The Guardian yesterday that frozen methane deposits in Arctic Ocean are now being released. They're melting, which will surely speed up warming even faster. And, many people in the community have asked us to explain what we're doing to help lower greenhouse gas emissions. And one thing I'd like to be able to say is that we are getting on with implementing the STEP code. So the province is phasing in stricter requirements for buildings to be energy efficient, and they're doing that through the STEP code. So we can choose right now to sit back and wait until 2022 when the province will require residential builds to meet STEP 2, which is a 20% increase in energy efficiency. Or we can help the construction sector to get ready for these changes by implementing STEP 2, which is a 10% increase in efficiency now. North Cowichan is wisely doing that. And I'd like us to defeat this motion so that I can move option 2 of the staff report, which is to implement STEP 2 in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was fully debated at committee, and I'm confident with the words and the decision that was made by committee, and I ask the question be called.
I did have one more speaker on my speakers list. I'll go to Director Smith. And I saw other hands, but procedurally, I've never had people call questions like this. Okay, I'm gonna allow the last 2 speakers, and then I'll call the question. Director Smith and then Director Salmon.
So I took the time over the last few days to have a discussion with a resident in Saltaire who is building a brand new home. And they said that when they started, they paid one price for wood. Their next order of wood was almost double. And then their most recent order is triple. So these homeowners that are currently finding themselves building are struggling to even meet the building expenses that they have now. Putting more restrictions on them at this time could be detrimental to the investments that they're making. I support the motion on the floor at this time. I think that we have way too many expenses for our residents that are building, and we want to encourage new building. And if we have to wait another year to bring in the step code, then I think this is a way of ensuring economic recovery.
Thank you. Director Salmon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, normally I'm quite sympathetic with costs and what Director Smith's saying. But in this case, with climate change, and we do a lot of talk about it, but this is one concrete place where we could show a tiny bit of leadership and get a little bit ahead of the game on the step code. And it wouldn't even be, you know, as we know, North Cowichan has already done it. This is not going to put us way out on a limb or any sort of problem that I think we should try to do one small concrete thing. So I'll be voting against this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have asked the question be called, and I did say that I'd allow Directors Salmon and Smith both to speak. I do see that Director Marsh, you have your hand up now. I'll give you just, if you can just keep it brief. I appreciate that North Cowichan's done this and Lady Smith is likely on the path as well, but I'd like to get the question called. We already have a very long agenda ahead of us and many more items to discuss. Go ahead, Director Marsh.
Yeah, so I'm behind Director Nicholson and Director Salmon on this.
Thank you.
I think since you don't want me to say much, I won't say why.
Well, I can say you can be concise, but just don't need to be verbose. You can put your ideas forward, just make it concise.
Right, well, I think in the long run it will save homeowners, although it may urge them to build smaller homes, which is going to help save the earth. So I could say a bit more about it, but it doesn't really feel particularly welcome.
Thank you. And I actually wanted to speak briefly. The cost to go to step 2, you'll find that most builds today actually would comply with step 2 with new energy efficient windows and building techniques. So I don't actually see a barrier to cost. Much of what's been discussed in terms of cost is COVID challenges and will not be long term. And I think that, as was stated at the beginning, taking step to step 2 in 1 year and then step 3 in the following year, as is required by law, would be constructive. And I will also be voting against this motion. So I will call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? So we have Directors Nicholson, Haim, Salmon, Wilson, Marsh, Duncan, and Stone opposed. 7, so the motion carries. I believe we have 7 against, 8 in favor. Thank you. Thank you for that. Moving on, Mr. Director Morrison.
These are for electoral area directors only, and
sorry, Director
Area
Morrison.
Services Committee be held in advance of the next regular electoral area services committee. Yes.
Sorry, you cut out there about a few first couple sentences there.
Oh, I'll turn my video off. Number 8, that a special electoral area services committee meeting be held in advance of the next regular electoral area services committee meeting regarding the report from the Community Planning Division re-electoral area open house reports on the OCP and MOCP. 9, that ALR 20-H03 for Dual Road be forwarded to the Agricultural Land Commission with a recommendation for approval. 10, that development variance permit DVP 20D01 Fairbanks Road be denied. 11, that development variance permit DVP 20E07 for Pollock Road be issued. 12.1, that development permit number DP20B08 for Stonecrest Way be issued. 2, that the required cash amenity contribution of $10,000 for development permit number DP20B08 be made to the Shawnigan Lake Recreation Specified Area Capital Projects Reserve Fund pursuant to Electoral Area B zoning bylaw number 985, 1986. The section listed below, minimum parcel size and amenity requirement for Goldstream Heights. And 3, that the subject property at Stonecrest Way be exempt from the requirement for a minimum 10% lot frontage onto a road in accordance with Section 512 of the Local Government Act. And I would move those items.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? This is for EA directors only. And opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On to director's reports. Item DR1 is Director Nicholson's report with a request for requisition limit increases, and the proposed recommendation is that 1, CVRD bylaw number 2298, Glenora Community Association Grant and Aid Service Establishment bylaw 2002 be amended to increase the annual requisition limit by 25%. And 2, that CVRD bylaw number 3389, Couch and Station Area Association Annual Financial Contribution Service Establishment bylaw 2010 be amended to increase the annual requisition limit by 25%.
And do we have a mover for those? Director Nicholson, I presume. Director Nicholson, do we have a seconder? Director Yanni DiNardo, any discussion on these? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. DR2 is removed at the adoption of the agenda, so DR3 is Alternate Director Haim regarding the Yellow Point Trail Joint Management Committee report and Yellow Point Ecological Society request. And the recommendation proposed is 1, that the Yellow Point Ecological Society request for Cowichan Valley Regional District participation on a joint management committee with the Regional District of Nanaimo, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and yes, to explore and advance plans for an active transportation path in RDN Electoral Area A and CVRD Electoral Area H be approved and a representative appointed. And 2, that a letter of support for this stage of the project be provided to yes.
Thank you. I would turn it over to Director Haim for some more detail. I did watch the presentation at EAS, but I'm not sure everyone has, so please go ahead. We're not getting your audio as well, Director Haim.
How's that?
There you go. Yeah.
There we go. First off, I've got the director's report there, and I won't read it out, as well as the yes presentation that they made to the Electoral Area Committee. A couple of developments since that report was written. First off, the yes group has received letters of support from School District 68 in relation to it, expressing thanks with regards to the possible safety issues around North Oyster School or around the Oyster School. The RDN passed their motion yesterday with regards to participation in a similar fashion. And Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure has come up with the funding to do widening of the side of the road from the distance from Code Road to Haslam Road, which is 5.2 kilometers. So that, while it's not a completely separate trailway, it will provide additional safety. So MOTI is stepping up their support on the initiative, and they're in support with the idea of the Joint Management Committee. So I moved those 2 recommendations that are in the report.
Thank you. And it does say that be approved and a representative appointed. Do you have a representative in mind? I know that there's complications with the coming election, but.
And that's why there's not a specific individual mentioned in there at this time.
Okay, thank you. So those 2 items have been moved. Did I get a seconder? Seconded by Director Salmon. Any discussion on this? I'll go to Director McGonigal.
Thank you very much. I think this is a great example of collaborative approach by 2 jurisdictions. We're looking at a similar project within our locale. We can amalgamate these applications by multiple jurisdictional groups. And I think kudos to the group that has put this forward. Good job.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? I would just say I watched the report and yeah, it's a great offshoot of the trail systems that we look to establish all along the island and definitely needed in the area. Seeing no further, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Before we move on, I just want to ask Director Haim, is there a meeting that's supposed to be pending quite soon? I'm just wondering if we're able to discuss an appointment to that, a representative to be appointed.
There's not an immediate meeting. However, the Yes Group was intending to put in some preliminary applications for funding, which is what put the timing on this, preferably before the end of October.
Okay, so I'll work with staff to get and yourself to get a letter of support together so we can get it out to them in time, because that's 2 days. All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff reports. Item SR1 is a staff report from the CAO regarding the corporate strategic plan, and the recommendation is that the 2020 to 2022 corporate strategic plan be approved.
Thank you. Moved by Director Sebring, seconded by Director Smith, and discussion. I'll go to Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, everything seems to be incorporated that that we've discussed and all the rest of it. I'd just like to, because this will come up in one of the future ones there on page 2 of that, page 6, which is vision, mission, and principles. It says that we are engagement focused. We seek and appreciate public participation and incorporate the feedback we receive in our decision making. That will be coming forward again in the public input discussion, but I'd like to highlight it here.
Thank you. And we'll debate what the value is of good public input at that item, not this item, but I appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll refer back to it at that time. Do I have any other speakers to this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you for that. It's only been 2 years. We did it. Moving on, Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item SR2, staff report from the Chief Administrative Officer on the CVRD Climate Action Report, and this is for information.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? I just want to thank staff again for the work. I know it's very corporate in its presentation, but I appreciate that that's the lens with which this information is being presented. And I think on the heels of the Climate and Energy Action Award, I think this highlights again some of the initiatives that the region has taken, and hopefully leads to more thoughtful and well-measured and well-managed investments in mitigating climate change. Mr. Carruthers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this report came about as a result of providing input to the Board of Directors during their strategic planning process, and we felt that it was worthwhile sharing it more broadly with the public. Moving forward, I'm going to be working with our staff to refine our reporting so that in future reports there are some metrics and some measurables that we can bring forward for the board and for the public, so that we can actually measure our success moving forward. So I just wanted to let the board know that this isn't the end, and that we'll be continuing to improve our reporting in the future.
Thank you very much. Director Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I for some reason, I'm reading off my iPad. I can't open up the presentation, but when I looked at it last night, it just, the pictures and the way it was laid out, it was really beautiful, and it made me feel really proud to be part of Cowichan. So I think you guys have done a great job.
Thank you, and I would encourage everyone to read the supplemental documentation as well. There's a lot of more in-depth information in there, and hopefully as we try and engage on a path forward for our region, we can use that basis of information, and as Mr. Carruthers said, the further reporting and ongoing discussion. Okay, Director Salmon.
Yeah, thank you. Reminds me, with the chair's indulgence, could I ask one question on the last very brief question? Well, sort of related to...
On the previous item?
Yeah, the strategic plan.
Well, let's just finish this one, and once we're done this one, I'll come back to you. You can ask the question even though we've already adopted it, but I'll come back to you. Is there any further discussion on this item? I'm seeing none, so I'll go back to you, Director Salmon, on the previous item.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, will we do the placemats again?
I believe so. I think there's some demand for the placemats. My question is, are we allowed to take them home until we come back to the table?
Assuming we get back to meeting in person eventually.
Yeah.
And show them virtually on our screens, Mr. Chair?
Well, I'm sure we can turn it into a desktop wallpaper for you, Director. I don't know why Director Morrison's saying you can't do that, but I'm sure we could. Anyway, thank you very much.
Screen's too busy already.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We will get the placemats made. And if we did get the honor to take them home and put them on our own desks, we can bring them back covered with crumbs and coffee rings. So, all right. We're moving on. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item SR3 is a staff report from Environmental Services on the 2020 Budget Amendment Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Grant. And the recommendation for consideration is that the 2020 budget for Function 530 Couch and Flood Management be amended to 1. Increase provincial conditional grants revenue by $91,004 and 2. Increase project expenditures expense by $91,004.
Thank you very much. Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Acton. Any discussion on this? Obviously a great initiative and great that we got funding for it. And seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR4, staff report from the Emergency Management Division, Community Emergency Preparedness Fund grant application. And the recommendation proposed is that a grant application in the amount of $25,000 be submitted to the Union of BC Municipalities Community Emergency Preparedness Fund for evacuation route planning.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director McGonigal. Any discussion on this one? Director Nicholson, or was that to second it?
No.
Go ahead.
Apparently, electoral area E evacuation planning was done last year, and I have not heard anything about it. And I was wondering if we could get an update about evacuation planning. And then I was thinking that when I was reading this stuff, and then I realized that, you know, emergency preparedness or dealing with emergencies is one of the important responsibilities local governments have, the regional district has. And I feel like I'm not very up to date on, I know that we've done good emergency response to issues that have come along, but I don't feel like I have a clear picture of how we're going to handle emergencies moving forward for the whole region. And I was wondering if it would be possible to have a workshop or something to update us. And that led me to also wonder, are we resourcing our emergency preparedness adequately, given that with climate change, we are going to be facing increasing risks in the future? And so are we relying wholly on grants to get important work done, or do we have the resources in place to kind of knock this stuff off as we move?
Thank you. I think I heard 3 questions there. I'll put it through to Mr. Carruthers. One was about the workshop to sort of look at our status, I think, and where we're going with emergency management, whether we are properly prepared and whether we're funding all this from grants or if we've got other initiatives. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, that's an excellent suggestion. We had actually been looking at doing that. It's having the directors aware of their responsibilities and aware of our plan is really important in our emergency response. So we've been planning to do that. Between COVID hitting and some staff disruptions over the last 6 to 7 months, that was put on the back burner. But we will endeavor to do that to get a workshop with the directors. We're also reviewing our emergency plan and consulting with our municipal partners as well with respect to the role of the CVRD regionally and in emergency response. Yeah, we do rely heavily on grants. Further to Director Nicholson's question, we have core funding that provides sufficient resources for staffing and basic operation of our emergency operations center. But as you know, much of our emergency response is funded by the province. When we get a task number to respond to an emergency, that's where we get the contributions back from the province to help us respond to it. But there are a number of emergency planning exercises like evacuation planning, like wildfire protection that do need to be done, and we apply for those grants whenever the opportunity arises. But I would leave a further discussion to that to a workshop with the board, and I would defer to staff to provide a little bit more detail to the board at that time around where we're sitting in our preparedness, and if an additional investment would be appropriate for the board to put us in a really good position. Certainly all the work we're doing around climate change risk assessments, those sorts of things are all contributing to our emergency response plans and understanding the challenges that we're going to face. But there certainly could be more that could be done. So with the board's indulgence, I'll refer that to a future workshop so the board can have that conversation with our staff in more detail.
Thank you very much. Director Nicholson, do you have a follow-up? No, thank you. I think, Director Sebring, Director Morrison. Did I miss anyone? Okay, go ahead, Director Sebring.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This comes up periodically at budget time. When we apply for grants and we get the grants, we are committing staff time to carry out the work that the grant is for. And I would just respectfully ask staff, do we have the staff capacity to spend this money, assuming we get this grant, without putting additional strain on or requiring additional personnel?
Yes, through the chair, yes, we do. And we would be very conscious of that in terms of applying for those funds. So yeah, I can provide assurance that we do have the capacity to move this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I sort of beg your indulgence because this is kind of about SR4 and SR5, and I appreciate Mr. Carruthers' comments, and I really want to sort of double down on what Director Nicholson had said, because being in the outlying communities, it's not just evacuation route planning, but we're surrounded by these basically huge gasoline tanks of forests that are really scary if we get wildfire situations. So I would even add some urgency to what she said to Mr. Carruthers in organizing a workshop sooner than later, because a year or two ago we purchased the structure protection unit that is to embark on making a regular purchase of those every couple of years, but we do not have the resources put aside to be able to make those purchases, which I think are critical in this area that we're talking about. So I'd like to see if it's possible for us to meet before our 2021 budget has been wrapped up and decided on, in case there are other additions that we'd like to make along those lines. So I just give you a sense of urgency from my perspective. I'd like to look at this sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further speakers to this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you for that. And Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR5 is a staff report also from Emergency Management Division, Community Resilience Investment Fire Smart Community Funding Grant application. And the proposed recommendation is that a grant application in the amount of $466,581 be submitted to UBCM Community Resiliency Investment Fire Smart Community Funding Program.
And I think I saw Director Morrison move that item. It's seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Any discussion on this item that we didn't already have? Director McGonigal and then Director Smith.
Thank you. Just to clarify, this would be for electoral areas service or electoral areas only for that mitigation. Municipalities do apply for those and do get those. We have in the past gotten. So just to clarify, this is for electoral area mitigation.
Yeah, I think I'll put that through to staff. I couldn't quite hear again. For some reason, your audio has gone out again, Director McGonigal, but I think it was, this is for electoral area director, or electoral areas, the municipalities do our own work. Yes. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Director Smith.
Yes, my question is to staff. Are there specific parks and trail systems that the fuel management will be used for that are identified in this grant application?
I'd put that through to staff.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm going to refer to our emergency management division to respond to that specifically. These projects are all based on risk assessments, and they can speak in more detail to the projects that are being funded.
Thank you. I keep seeing my screen move around. They're popping in and out of the meeting. Oh, there we go.
Hi, April Diver, Emergency Program Coordinator. Thank you, Chair. In terms of the parks that were selected, it was the 2 parks that were chosen were from a higher priority based on the Community Wildfire Protection Plan and would have had the biggest immediate effect from a fuel treatment perspective, and that's why they were selected. Wood Creek Park is residential and has lots of invasive Scotch broom, and Satlam Greenway Park has just had a trail constructed and has the public walking through it now, and it's also in a residential area.
Thank you. And follow up, Director Smith.
Yeah, I have a concern because in Saltaire we have a community park, and there's a forested area around it with residential. And every time we have the ball teams come or certain people using the park, they tend to smoke and they tend to hide in the bushes that, or the trees that have quite a few broken trees, dead trees. It's just a big fuel pot sitting there right behind residential houses. And I'm not sure, how do we get on a list to actually look at trying to address that through this type of a program?
Thank you. I put that through to staff. I believe it's based on a hazard risk assessment, but I'll put that through to staff.
Yes, that is correct. It's done by a hazard risk assessment. In conjunction with the BC Wildfire Service, they have to categorize the areas that are of highest risk. And then we put forward a list of potential areas and they help screen.
Thank you. And maybe at some point we can have just an update from staff on the ranking of those risk assessments, just so that the directors understand where they are in the queue potentially. Thank you. I believe I have Director Morrison. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and this is through to staff because I think now I'm confused. I went and saw the Fire Smart work that was done in the town of Lake Cowichan, which I thought was quite exhaustive and very well done, and learned so much when I attended their presentation to their community. Are we talking about like a Fire Smart plan for entire communities and linking the Fire Smart plans in the electoral areas? Or are we talking about more of a specified targeted fuel load removal program? Because I thought the Fire Smart community program was a much broader, more inclusive activity than simply just targeted fuel removal in certain areas. So am I mistaken in that, or can I get some clarification?
I'll put that through to staff. I did see in the report that part of the grant application is the fuel management, but I'll put that through to staff.
Thank you, Director. The fuel management is one piece of it. So you are correct, Director Morrison. It is a much bigger program. So the grant that has been put forward was for a number of things: critical infrastructure assessments, water assessments, public education materials, and fuel management. And all of that is based on the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which gives you all of the different pieces of Fire Smart and all the different recommendations across the entire region.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that that homeowners can do, and I
Director Wilson, your microphone's up on your head.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, one of the things that I have mentioned before, as far as wildfire protection is concerned, is something that all of the fire departments in the area do carry and do recommend, and it's the WASP fire protection kit, which is 2 sprinklers. It all comes as a kit. You install them. They will even install them for you on the tops of your houses or in your gutters. They are great believers in this. And if you have to evacuate, you can turn these things on, walk away. And if you can't turn them on, they'll come and do it for you. Get in touch with your local fire departments and ask about the WASP fire protection kits. I think even the CVRD were selling them at the front counter as well as part of their bits and pieces. Okay, and there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR6, staff report from Inspection and Enforcement regarding soil deposit permit application for PID 009351744, and the proposed recommendation is that soil deposit permit SDC 20-04 be issued.
Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Any discussion? Seeing, Director Salmon.
What's in Director Acton's area? She seems to not be there. Is that what? Here we go. She may have a question.
Well, you stalled long enough to get her back. So Director Acton, not to put you on the spot, but we're on SR6 and Director Salmon stalled so that if you had any questions, you could ask.
Soil deposit.
Soil deposit SR6.
Sorry, I couldn't wait till the next break.
Sorry, I should have called for another break. But
I actually did not have any questions. I was happy to see that well, I'm no expert, but will look like a quality report. So I will be, I know that we struggle a lot with our soil deposit bylaw and the amount of soil that's being dumped all over South Cowichan. So, we continue to be frustrated with the soil bylaw, but at the moment I'll be voting in favor of this recommendation.
thank you. Seeing no further discussion or no hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Item SR7, staff report from Inspection and Enforcement Division regarding soil deposit permit application for PID 027514382. And the recommendation is that soil deposit permit SDC 20-02 be issued.
Thank you. Do we have a mover and a seconder? It's moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Sebring. And discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? None opposed, motion carries. I realize now that we are just over 2 hours into the meeting. Do folks require another break? Sorry, Director Acton, if I had have noticed the time, I would have asked. Does the board wish a short break? Okay, we'll take 6 minutes. We'll be back here at just after 3:45-ish. I say 3:50 because I know everyone.
Thank you.
Buffering. I need to do this. And we're live. No? Sorry, I saw too much some good news in the summer. We are live. Thank you for that, and we will resume our agenda. Ms. Legault, where are we?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR8 is a staff report from the Finance Division, Q3 2020 Capital Project Progress Report for information.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff on this item? Go ahead, Director Smith.
I just wanted to ask a question, not really of finance, but of the Parks Department, to know if we are moving along with the Cowichan Valley Trail between North Watts and the town of Ladysmith boundary. I know that Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure has given the permits, and I'm just kind of wondering where we are on this. It's such a great active transportation opportunity.
I would put that through to the appropriate staff member if one pops up.
We'd have to put that through to, yeah, I would have to put that through to our Parks Division. I don't see Brian on here. Not sure if anybody else can respond to the details. We can provide a follow-up to the board on that particular project at a later date.
Okay, please take that. And Director Smith, if you remember, just shoot us an email and we won't forget. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion on the capital projects update? All right, seeing none, I believe we'll move on in our agenda. That was for information. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR9, Staff Report from the Finance Division, Q3 2020 Operating Expense Progress Report for information.
Thank you, and we do have Ms. Wayner here if we have questions for her on the operating expense progress. I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll take, oh, Director Acton, my apologies, go ahead.
Sorry, I never saw if it has already come through, but remember we had asked some of our grant and aid functions to reimburse any expenses that they didn't use for COVID. Did anyone ever take us up on that?
We did.
Ms. Wayner, go ahead.
Through the chair to Director Acton, letters were sent out to all of the groups that were granting agencies, and some of those groups, well, I think we had one group return money. The rest of them went and said they'd be utilizing it in future years and putting it towards reducing requisition or maintaining requisition. And sorry, I just got an update. No, there wasn't a group that did return funds. All of them chose to use it against future 2021 costs.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we will continue on our agenda. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR10, Staff Report from the Finance Division regarding CVRD 2020 audit, and the recommendation is that the 2020 Audit Planning Communication Report, as submitted by BDO Canada LLP, be received.
Thank you. Moved by Director Kuhn, seconded by Director Marsh. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And it's unanimous, none opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR11, Staff Report from Inspection and Enforcement Division regarding building records secure storage. And the recommendation is that the budget for Function 328 Bylaw Enforcement be amended to 1. Increase miscellaneous equipment capital by $30,000 and 2. Decrease legal services by $30,000.
Thank you. Is that moved by Director Marsh, seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo? Any discussion on this item? Seeing none. Oh, Director Marsh.
No, I'm sorry. I was
getting ready to vote. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll call the question then. All those in favor?
I'm really enthusiastic.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you. Item SR12, Staff Report from the General Manager, Community Services regarding Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program, and the proposed recommendation, 1, that a grant application in the amount of $850,000 be submitted to the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program for the Kinsale Trestle Gateway Project, and 2, that grant application in the amount of $550,000 be submitted to the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program for the South Cowichan Pickleball Complex.
Thank you. Do we have a mover for these? Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Wilson. Discussion. I'll go to Director Sebring, Nicholson. Did I miss anyone? Director Sebring.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not opposed to this. I'm just wondering whether staff has any sense of how many dollars are coming or are potentially available to us here in the Valley, because I know that there are some private organizations. I can think of 2 in North Cowichan for which I've written letters of support that are also applying for this CRIP money. And those are requests for considerably less than what we're asking for here. But I'm just wondering whether big grant requests like this would potentially impact some of the smaller requests from organizations like Elkington House out in Maple Bay, and the Raptor Center on Herb Road, and I think the Forest Discovery Center is putting one in. Is there a sense of A, how much is available for us, and B, what this might do to impact the balance of that?
I can tell you that the full stream, all 4 streams, plus the segregated stream for the 33 communities, totals about $100 million, about $20 million, give or take, per stream, I believe. So I can already see it'll be significantly oversubscribed, every stream by the looks of it. And that's kind of seems to be the grant funding game. But Mr. Carruthers, I don't know if you can comment on anything beyond that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't. Obviously, a very tight turnaround to get these applications in for this funding program. One of the challenges of having a program that's open to a broad base of applicants is that you don't know where all the applications are actually coming from. So unless Mr. Elzinga has any more information than I do, I think we're just taking our chances. We had a number of projects that we looked at for the CVRD, and we narrowed it down to these two that we felt that we were, kind of shovel ready and could proceed next year with these two projects and met the criteria. But that's as much as I can offer you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and just for, like you said, for context, Mayor Sebring, we have a couple of community groups that have come forward for projects as well, not as big as some of the others in the kind of couple $100,000 range, as well as 2 municipal applications going in. So I think it's well understood that there is some of them, for example, that they said they would, prioritize your list within your grant application so that they'll sort of go as far down the priority list as they can. That's not these streams, but in the tourism dependent community stream. Yeah, it stands to recognize that there's going to be significantly more applications, I think, than funds available. Hopefully we get more support from senior government on the back end. I have Director Nicholson, then Director Marsh. Director Nicholson.
Thank you, sorry. I was just wondering where Taylor Park was and whether there would be much destruction of the park and to create so many parking spaces.
I put that through to staff.
That one I would have to refer to Parks. I can't answer that. I wouldn't be able to answer that question, Mr. Chair.
Do we have anyone? We don't have anyone from Parks
I don't.
Here.
No, I don't believe we do.
Okay. Now, again, this is the grant applications. We can follow up on the particulars of implementing those. And maybe if there is concerns, we can review those in terms of the project planning and execution. If Mr. Crothers, if that would be fair.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Go to Director Marsh.
Yeah, thank you, but I don't believe I had my hand up.
Oh, sorry, I'm just so excited to get everybody in. Anyone else want in on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On to bylaws. Item B1, CVRD Bylaw 4350, Cowichan Station Area Association Annual Financial Contribution Service Amendment, Requisition Limit Increase Bylaw 2020 for first, second, and third readings.
Thank you. I think that's moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Wilson. Sorry, I got a cough here. It's not COVID. I just choked up. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Item B2, CVRD Bylaw 4351, Cowichan Bay Sewer System Service Amendment, Requisition Limit Increase Bylaw 2020 for first, second, and third reading.
Thank you. We have a mover on that. Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Marsh. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Can folks hear me? Hello?
Sometimes.
Okay, well, I'll speak closely. Okay, so it was moved, I think, by Director Yanni DiNardo and seconded by Director Marsh. Any discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you. B3, CVRD Bylaw 4352, Malahat Fire Protection Service Amendment Bylaw 2020 for first, second, and third readings.
Do I have a mover? Or moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Smith. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Item B4, CVRD Bylaw 4353, Eagle Heights Fire Protection Service Amendment Bylaw 2020 for first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Duncan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bylaws for electoral area directors voting, BEA 1, CVRD Bylaw 4326, South Cowichan Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2020 for second reading as amended.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Salmon. This is for electoral area directors only. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On to unfinished business. Item UB1 was a carry forward from the October 14th board meeting, staff report from Legislative Services on electronic meetings, and the recommendation at that time was public input period submissions for virtual meetings be forwarded to directors half hour prior to meeting start time, with the chair providing a verbal summary of input received for the meeting.
Thank you. I'm going to take a bit of a speakers list here, I think. I've got Director Sebring, Director Wilson, Director Kuhn, Director Marsh, Smith. God, I can't write that fast, folks. McGonigal and Nicholson. Any others? I'm going to make my statement now, and I'm going to say my piece and then wade out of the discussion. I'm of two minds on public input. I'm never here to censure anyone's input. And I believe that although sometimes they're uncomfortable and sometimes they're inflammatory, I think that we all have broad shoulders and we can handle that, and we can help our community parse through it when the discussion comes. However, I don't believe good decision making is made at the last minute, and I find that public input becomes more of a political statement rather than valuable input to the board when it's given moments before items on the agenda are to be considered. I find the best input is the earliest it can be found as possible. And although we have had issues during COVID, I find that in general, I find good public input comes well in advance, and the last minute input at public input period has never been that of the highest value from my perspective. That's just my view on it. At our municipality, we don't accept that. And when we don't accept that, we often find that well in advance of the meeting, good points will be made by members of the community by an email to council, and it's adjudicated in the consideration of the matter rather than at the last minute when we may have already made some decisions in our minds based on the information or created some biases based on the information we've reviewed without that last minute input. So I'm fine to frankly leave it the way it is. I'm not sensitive enough that it bothers me, even though I find sometimes it may be inflammatory or overly verbose. So that's all I have to say on the matter. I think my message to the community is if you really want to impact decision making, get your input in much sooner than the public input period on the agenda, because it gives us more opportunity to consider your input in terms of weighing our decision making process. And but I'm fine with whatever the group decides to do as far as public input. It's now a political item, not really a governance item. So from a governance perspective, I don't feel that the way public input is done right now is valuable to my decision making, but I'll leave that to the rest of the members of the board. I've got Director Sebring, Wilson, Kuhn, Marsh, Smith, McGonigal, see that's my writing so fast, Nicholson, and I'll start with Director Sebring.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to speak for a little bit here, if you'll allow me. First, I want to respond to some of the public input that we received today on public input. And it seems ironic, but it's fair enough. I mean, I'm just going to grab a couple of little quotes here from what we heard. Our democratic rights are being removed. We are muzzling our constituents. Did this work for North Cowichan? No, actually it did, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. The notion that in the strategic plan that we approved, we appreciate public participation and incorporate the feedback we receive in our decision making. That's absolutely true, and that is not in any way mutually exclusive to what we're being discussed here. The term censorship of public input was used. Absolutely not the case. People have the right to be equally heard. I totally agree with that, but that's not what this motion is about. So that's the context for me of the public input on the public input. But what I really want to talk about is, and forgive me, Mr. Chair, I disagree with you. This is a governance issue as much or more than it is a political issue, in the sense that The public input is designed to do what? The public input is designed to inform us as board members around this table of public perceptions and perhaps alternative positions on the items that are on our agenda. It's designed to give us stuff to think about, and it's valuable in that sense. I agree with you that last minute public input is difficult because it's difficult for us to digest at the last minute when we're like today. Thankfully, I didn't have to vote on the land use issues that were the subject of about half our public input stuff because that's an EAS thing. But if I had been forced to vote on that, I really would have been scratching my head trying to absorb all that input at the very last minute before the start of the meeting. You know, somebody asked, you know, how's it working out for North Cowichan? Well, let me first tell you what we're doing in North Cowichan. We're trying to move away from this last minute paradigm, and we have said input will be received by 4 p.m. the day before the meeting and circulated to all of council. That way we have the morning before we go into the meeting to look at all that stuff and actually consider it thoughtfully. Yes, there can be last minute emails that come to our individual accounts and we can look at those, but council will be presumed to have read the input that comes in prior to 4 p.m. the day before the meeting. The other concern that we heard at North Cowichan was, well, you know, it's not really public input if it's not out there for the public to see. Well, again, the input is for us as directors or us as councillors. It's not input for the public unless you want to stand in your soapbox and make a political statement. But we said, all right, if you're that concerned that the public gets to see your input, then we will take the emails that we received by 4 p.m. the day before the meeting, and we will post them on the website as an addendum to the agenda so they become part of the public record in the same way that the video of the meeting would constitute part of the public record when you get up in normal times and stand in front of the microphone and give us your input that way. So that's how we've chosen to do it. And it's granted, we're very early in the piece. We're relative rookies at this, but I think we've satisfied the public with that provision that your input will become part of the public record and that it'll be readable online for the geeks who are really into this stuff. And let's be clear, there's not a lot of people that either watch this or are that concerned about it, but those that are can have access to the public input. We get a better chance to consider that public input by backing up the deadline to 4 p.m. the day before the meeting so that we can have some thoughtful consideration of the input before we're actually called upon to make a decision. So I'll leave it at that for now. I may reserve the right to speak more later, but I'd like to hear what everybody else says. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarity, Director Sebring, I think I agree with you on what I said about it being a governance versus a political issue is that often the feedback we've received seems to frame it in a way that it isn't really supportive, in my view, of good governance because it is that extra time. And I do appreciate actually how North Cowichan has attempted to find a balance between the timeliness of the input and the amount of time to take it and give it good consideration and including it in the public record. So I've got Directors Wilson, Kuhn, and Marsh next. The list is long, but Director Wilson, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've always been a great believer in the if it ain't broke, don't mess with it outlook. And this is what we're trying to do here. I'm going to just, I did some research on this as well with public input in and participation in other countries. And I came across this one in 2011 from the Australian government. And the Aussies are fairly straightforward people. They don't mess around. They speak as they find it. And one of the things that stood out in the paper that I found is this particular paragraph, which says, the theory and practice of public administration is increasingly concerned with placing the citizen at the center of policymakers' considerations, not just as target, but also as agent. To that end, public servants are being exhorted to collaborate, not merely consult, to reach out, not merely respond. This means engaging with people who are increasingly well-educated, attuned to their rights as citizens, and voters who have ready access to information and broad exposure to the voices of opinion leaders, experts, and advocates. That to me says it all very well. We need to take as much notice as we can of the people who put us in these positions and who put their trust in us. I've already mentioned page 6 of the vision and engagement focus there from the strategic plan, and there is a certain amount of a degree of contradiction there. So I'm a little bit concerned about this, and I would much rather leave things as they are. Both Chairman Stone and Director Sebring have brought up some very good points. One of the ones I like a lot is the one closing the public submissions, let's say 24 hours before by close of business, and then letting the directors have it. Still leave the door open for those last minute ones to come forward. But we've got them there, and they will be part of the public record. So I might consider that. But right now, I'd really like to see things left as they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Kuhn, and then Director Marsh after Director Kuhn. Go ahead, Director Kuhn.
It's not very easy to find a compromise in that problem. I'm generally in favor of the public being able to have as much input as possible. On the other hand, what I found with some of the letters that were read even today, but more so previously, some of them are pretty lengthy, and they're almost written as a political statement or as a statement as to look at what kind of letter I can write. I mean, if you want to bring an issue forward, do it short and concise. And I think if people did that, if we put, let's say, a notice out there that we will accept letters that are maybe at maximum a half a page or something like that, maybe it would work. People would have to condense their wishes and their concerns, and that is fine. We don't need the whole frame of proper expression and flowery statements. We don't need all this nonsense. We just want to hear, okay, what's your opinion, and have it brought out, and that's the end of it. And I think if we can treat it like that, it might just work the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Director Marsh, then Smith, then McGonigal and Nicholson. So Director Marsh, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mayor Sebring, Director Sebring spoke rightly that we just very recently, last Wednesday, passed this new way of trying things. And there were people that wanted what this recommendation is that, you know, if you send your letter in by half an hour before the meeting, it will be read. And I had to be really honest and say, well, you know, the morning of a meeting, especially one that starts at 9:30, I'm walking my dog, I'm doing a whole bunch of different things. I cannot grok, if you've ever read that book, I cannot take in a bunch of last minute emails. When we go back to being in person, I'm happy to go back to those 3 minutes of talking because I'm a more auditory person. And I think people, when they know they have 3 minutes, they're quite concise. And, you know, it just sort of either rings true or it doesn't. So I'm actually for trying here too as well, that we would say to the public, due to the challenges of COVID, you know, we would accept and I don't know what the word Al used that we used in ours, but sort of like guarantee that directors will read any submissions by 4 o'clock the day before a meeting. But after that, they may or may not. That's up to them, depending on their life. Like we have lives, right? I mean, sometimes the night before a meeting here that starts at 9:30, I have a CAL meeting at North Cowichan. So, you know, I don't really want to start getting up at, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning and going for 7 or 12 hours kind of thing. So I think maybe it's a thing we're going to be flexible about, perhaps. The point that people make about the public input being for the public, not for us, not just for us, but for the public too, I don't particularly agree with that. I don't have a problem with the public hearing it, but I wouldn't have a problem if they didn't. So our staff out those things that came by 4 o'clock and attach them as an addendum to the minutes. But if CVRD staff would find that difficult, that wouldn't bother me if that didn't happen.
Just a point of order that's attached to the agenda, not the minutes.
Sorry, yeah, that was a
Yes,
point
at the end.
Point of clarification. Thank you, Director Sebring. Go ahead, Director Marsh, if you'd like to finish.
I kind of lost where I was, but
You're just referring to the items being included as an addendum to the agenda.
yeah. So to me, if that's onerous to our staff, that doesn't bother me if that doesn't happen. But you know, it is complicated because it's way nicer to me if you can hear the people speak. So is there no way that we could have a way that that half an hour ahead, there's a little spot ready and you dial in, and if you're one of the first 5 people, you get to talk to us for 3 minutes? Is that impossible to do? I mean, we can do it for longer presentations, but
I would say nothing's ever impossible. There's technical and fiscal challenges with enabling certain things, but I'm sure if that's what the board directed, staff could pursue it and report back to us.
yeah, I wouldn't want it to cost a bunch of anything.
Well, it might
So
not.
then-
I'm just saying they'd probably report back to us on the process and, you know, operational considerations, but it's not something that's impossible. It's being done elsewhere.
Well, my recommendation at this point would be to go with what North Cowicton's trying and try it, and let the public know that they can get, I think at CVRD, through you to Mr. Carruthers, I think you can sign up and get the agenda when the board gets the agenda if you want to. Am I right?
True to Mr. Carruthers.
I would refer to Ms. Legault on the details of
I saw nodding
public's
beside
availability.
me, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I've told people, and that's what we're telling people. You know, you're going to get the agenda the same time that we do. So you have between then and 4 o'clock the day before the meeting to send something to us that you can be sure we will read. And after that, you're taking your chances. So that would sort of be where I would tend to go. I can just say I know that I won't be able to read things half an hour before a meeting starts, because I have to prepare. Especially the difference for us here is we don't have a huge break. Someone doesn't bring us our dinner. So we've got to prepare all the meals that we're going to eat all day, and we've got to do a lot of different things. Not that I mind doing it. It's just that I can't add, yes, I'll read a whole bunch of letters 30 minutes before the meetings start, 30 minutes before regional services, 30 minutes just before corporate services, 30 minutes before the board. It's just too much.
thank you. I have Director Smith and McGonigal and Nicholson, and then I've inserted myself and Director Sebring. Go ahead, Director Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the things I'd like to point out, I keep hearing North Cowicton and I hear Ladysmith. One of the things that I think we should all look at is our agenda for the board today. It is not just the board. We have corporate services meeting on here. We have electoral area service committee meetings. Sometimes we have double electoral service committee meetings. We have how many directors' reports on here? Then we have how many staff reports on here? I mean, there's 12 staff reports on this one. And then we have bylaws. And to me, I think that we're very different at the Cowicton Valley Regional District Board. We have way more information for the community to read. And that sometimes when you receive just the same as the community at 4 p.m. or close to that time on Friday, it's a lot of reading. I know how many hours and hours and hours I spend reading all the documents that come to us with our package. And I feel that if the community has something to say, they may be working shifts, they may be working elsewhere, and they may not have the time to actually get down to reading all these documents. And then they may need to send a public input. They may have feel that that's very, very important. First of all, they've taken the time to actually read something, which I applaud them. Then they've sat down and contemplated it. Then they've written a document that they've sent with their name on it to us. They are speaking to us, and we've put it in our strategic plan that we were available for listening, and we're also wanting to communicate and improve our communication. Receiving things half an hour prior, receiving things in the morning, I struggle with that. I am either trying to scramble together something to get to the meetings, and I know that the half-hour time limit is just not appropriate, but I still think that we need the public input period, and I think that we need to change the recommendation that's before us at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McGonigal.
Thank you very much. We all want open and transparent governance, and part of that is listening to the electorate. So public input, in my opinion, is very important. But no different than delegations that come forward, decisions are not made after that delegation. So it's important to have the information prior to the meeting, in my opinion. We ask people to be succinct and straight to the point. If you review this video afterwards, you will find that we are not to the point and succinct. So how can we ask the general public to be as well? And that is off the cuff. I know that we're all passionate about our positions, but a prior perusal of these public input items helps me make better decisions. At the time of input, last minute, I don't have the capacity at my age, I am aged, to intake and make an informed decision. So I would appreciate a time deadline prior to the meeting, and I don't know what it is. I don't believe it's the recommendation. I can't support a half hour before, whether it's the night before for public input. But one thing that we did see during today's public input, there's a lack in the policy in some aspects as to withholding information, for instance, that may have to be updated in the policy. Just on privacy issues, etc. So maybe in the interim, we continue as we are, look at the policy on amendments in a future corporate services meeting or appropriate agenda, and apply those to the policy. And I was not straightforward and succinct. I apologize.
It's always good to have illustrative. I'll add you to the list, Director Yanni DiNardo. It's grown again, so we're up to double our original list. Next, we have Director Nicholson, then myself, Sebring, which I think him and I will get kicked to the end along with Director Marsh because we've already spoken. So it'll go Nicholson, Salmon, and Yanni DiNardo. Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I am really challenged by this conversation because I really super value the public's input. It is really helpful. I know many issues have been brought to my attention by the people who care and are paying attention, and I just really appreciate that. I also think it's important for transparency purposes that there is a clear record of the public who do take the time to provide input so that the community is aware of that. And I think that's really important. I think this requires a more thoughtful discussion than I feel I can do right now at the end of another long meeting. And I would agree with Director McGonigal that maybe we should just leave things as we are and punt this issue to corporate services for a proper discussion. I'd like to see the policy in front of me, not just a recommendation, and really be able to think this one through because it is very, very important.
Thank you. Next, I have Director Salmon and then Yanni DiNardo.
Yeah, thank you. I would really like to see a staff response on the possibility of trying to have it like we do in ESC when we have the proponents are available in person, well, online. The public input period could be like that because tone and body language and the visual is such a more effective communication, more memorable. And I know for me, it's a lot more. It goes into my head a lot more when I can see and hear the person as well as rather than hearing one person read the letters. So, if I think that would bring us a little closer to the way it used to be when we had public input in person, and I'd like to see that explored. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Director Yanni DiNardo next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to, I think the North Cowichan direction that they've gone in is the one that I would like to see. So I think that 4 o'clock the day before a cutoff it is a much better idea. So I just wanted to say that, and I don't know if there's going to be a resolution or anything, but
Thank you. Director Morrison's got his hand up. He hasn't spoken on this issue, so I'll go to him, then directors, myself, Director Sebring, and Director Marsh. I just want to make a quick comment. I'm not seeing very much agreement on a path forward, so I would entertain the fact that maybe we refer the discussion to corporate services and leave it as is for now, but I would go to Director Morrison first. Your microphone is, yep, on your head.
Way up there on my head there. Thank you. And beg your indulgence a little bit. I really wanted to listen to what everybody had to say because, we all have a little bit different perspectives on this. And I just want to share what my perspective is in regards to this because, Director Yanni DiNardo and I were there when this was first introduced. There was no opportunity other than for people to send emails, and that wasn't working very well either. So I think of what the goal of the input is for people to provide thoughtful input to directors to make good decisions. And so, in the very beginning, people would get up and give us their thoughts and we would proceed. And there wasn't the extent of the information that was provided that's being provided today, where just from the length of the letters you saw. So I know that I want to be able to incorporate the thoughts and feelings and arguments and debates that the community is having in the decision making that I make. But it's really important that we're all considering the same information when we're debating. So I think it's important that if information is being delivered to us for thoughtful consideration, that we all be getting the same information. And I say that because I got a call over the weekend from somebody that had a concern on an agenda item, and he wanted to launch into giving me his feelings on it. And I had to stop him and say, you really need to get this information into the hands of our legislative services people so that they can distribute it to the directors or put it on the public input section so that all of my colleagues are hearing what you have to say. So when I hear that people, they want to be heard, they want our input, their input to be considered in the decision making, I too find that the prior forethought really helps me in decision making. So I've started reading for years I've been reading my agendas on Sunday. And you know what? Sunday isn't enough time to read agendas. So it's spilling over into Mondays and into Tuesdays. And so I do all of that work to prepare, and then something comes in at the last minute. I have no way to check with staff on the veracity of the information that we're getting. I have no way to properly weight it as I consider the information. So I'm very much leaning towards there being an even playing field for anybody that wants to provide information to us, that they get it in by a specific deadline that we all agree to, so that all of us get to consider it at the same time, give it whatever weight that we choose, but we can check on the information that's being provided, but we're all working off of the same information. So, yes, we could continue to plot along the way we are, but are we getting information that is helping us in our decision-making process? Because that's what I thought the goal of this was. It wasn't to provide a platform for people to make political speeches at the beginning of the meeting. It wasn't to help a particular director's position on a matter that was on the agenda. It's for all of us to provide, or to be provided with information to make better decisions. And I think I'm leaning towards the path forward to making better decisions is that we all get the same information package, whether it be noon the day before or 4 o'clock the day before. That way we can all consider it, give it the same weight or whatever weighting we want, but we're all working off the same song sheet. That makes sense to me. That would work into the way I process our agendas and come prepared to work at meetings. So there's my 2 cents, and love to hear from the rest of you.
Thank you very much. And now I'll go to the second time speakers, Director Sebring and then Director Marsh.
I thought you had yourself on the list ahead of me.
I think we've all beat this one to this horse.
Right.
This horse is long since dead in my mind, but you go ahead.
I just wanted to add one other thing. I meant to mention it earlier and I overlooked it, and that was the notion that the chair provide a verbal summary of input received at the meeting. We tried that, and I'm telling you, whatever summary you provide will be a misrepresentation of what was intended. At least that's what you'll hear. You'll be criticized to no end because, well, that's not what I meant. So that's another piece. We don't want to go there. I would move and the Corporate Services Committee for further discussion.
Director Sebring, we heard I will move and then it went silent. Do you just want to try that again?
Yeah, I'll try. That we defer this issue to a future Corporate Services Committee meeting for more discussion.
Okay, it seems we have a seconder to that in Director Nicholson. I'm going to go to Director Marsh, and sorry, just for clarity, I forgot what it was I wanted to say. I'm absolutely not comfortable summarizing people's comments, so thank you for bringing that up, Director Sebring. I think it's just fraught with too many difficulties. I'll go to Director Marsh. We do have a motion on the floor, and this is to refer this matter to the next Corporate Services meeting for a more full discussion. But I will go to Director Marsh. This would be, we are on the referral now, but I will let you speak to the item because you were on the list before the referral was made.
Well, okay. So I'll do a bit of both and I'll do it quickly. When I got elected, there was no public input period at North Cowichan or the CVRD. I brought it to North Cowichan and I brought it to the CVRD, although it took about 1.5 years to get it happening at CVRD. My intention was I had gone to about 6 months worth of meetings before I got elected and watched these people make decisions on items that I had an opinion on. And I wasn't allowed to say what I thought. I just could ask the question after. So that was what my opinion was. I think it's grown because of COVID. This expectation has grown, and I really heard what Director Smith said about how long it takes us to read an agenda. But I would bet my dog, who I love very much, that most people skim through the agenda and the item that affects them, that's what they spend their time on. So they don't need as much time as we do to do it. But I do agree with referring it to Corporate Services because I think it seems like, the original idea is changing. And maybe that's true. So I agree with that.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers to the referral motion? This is to refer the item to Corporate Services, kicking the can to another committee. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question on that referral. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. To be further discussed with, I'm sure, some public input on it at Corporate Services. Director Nicholson.
Thank you. When we have that discussion, it would be really helpful if we could have the current policy in front of us, and if we could have an idea of the barriers or opportunities for having people virtually live.
Thank you. Yeah, both good points that were brought up. Director Sebring.
Is there any interest in us providing the actual motions and stuff that precipitated what we did at North Cowichan, just so we have some clarity? I'm not suggesting that we want to copy that, but maybe the board would want to have a look at that. I could have our staff pass that along to staff here. If there's not interest.
You know, if you'd like, you could just email it to the board address so that we have it.
All right, I can do that. Thank you.
It doesn't hurt if folks want to look at that as well. Thank you. I will continue, I believe, with the agenda. Ms. Legault, I think we're to question period. How ironic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, question period. I have not received any submissions for question period.
Well, we did hear them in public input, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry, to go into closed session. Sorry, Director Nicholson, was that the motion to go into closed session?
No, it just reminded me that one of the points that was made was we don't give people enough time to put in thoughtful questions, particularly on the last couple of items of a meeting, and then maybe we should be considering putting a break in there.
Okay, so why don't we add that to our discussion? We'll discuss the nuances of question period as well at that corporate services meeting. I see staff nodding, so I don't know if it requires a motion, or now I have Director Morrison. I'm just trying to get to a closed session, but go ahead, Director Morrison.
I'll be very quick, and I don't know whether there's any way that staff can coordinate any sort of reporting on this, but the notion of, I think we end up with a lot of duplication at board meetings of exactly what was discussed at committee. And I don't know if there's a way for us to differentiate between issues that have been dealt with at committee not being repeated verbatim at the board, since most of the heavy lifting's done there. Just a consideration for when we have our next discussion.
Yeah, I think we're now having discussions, and I think that this sounds kind of like direction to staff, which would require motions, but I think we can look at all of these issues maybe at that meeting. Director Duncan, but this is the last comment I'm going to take. We've passed the agenda. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just move on.
Move to closed session by Director Duncan, seconded by Director Marsh. We will come back at 4:50 for closed session. I'll call the motion. Question on the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. We are in closed. Thank you to the public and all of you for your good nature today, and for the public for all your input. And we will talk shortly in closed session. Director Sebring, you got both fingers up like you're going to a disco dance.
Just to be clear, we log out and log back in under the new URL?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll see you there in about 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Bye.